Welcome back to America's Fractured Politics. I'm your host, Mark Mansour. Today we're diving deep into the mechanics and milestones of Project 2025, an aggressive blueprint that has rapidly reshaped the federal government as we knew it. This narrative tracks the administration's relentless and ongoing implementation of the Heritage Foundation's detailed roadmap, capturing both the scale and specifics of progress at an unprecedented pace. This is a detailed report from the front lines of a government redefined in under a year. From the very first day of the 2025 Trump administration, Project 2025's plans took center stage. Before inauguration, its lead architect, Russell Vaught, who would become director of the Office of Management and Budget, said plainly, "We are not here to preserve the administrative state. We are here to remake it in the image of accountability and allegiance." This vow wasn't rhetorical. It launched the immediate reinstatement of the Schedule F classification. Tens of thousands of career federal employees in agencies including the ERA, DOJ, and DHS were suddenly at risk for at-will termination. By mid-2025, more than 10,000 had been removed or displaced, replaced by political loyalists handpicked for ideological fidelity. The result? A bureaucracy decimated of expertise and independence, replaced by fear and unquestioning allegiance. In less than a year, nearly half of the 532 domestic directives detailed in Project 2025's exhaustive policy blueprint have been implemented. That's 251 completed actions, a blistering pace of approximately one per day without pause. What began with administrative purges quickly became a wave of regulatory rollbacks, funding cuts, and policy remakings aimed at current governance, environmental regulation, civil rights, public health, and labor protections. July was a turning point. The Department of Labor doubled down on accommodating religious expression within federal employment, opening doors to block diversity and inclusion efforts under the banner of protecting traditional values. The Trump administration decreed that federal contracts now require active rejection of quote-unquote woke corporate policies, effectively policing ideological conformity across the private sector. Meanwhile, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention quietly shifted away from evidence-based contraception to fertility awareness methods, pulling funding from long-standing family planning programs. Around the same time, federal support for public broadcasting was halted as NPR and PBS lost crucial funding. The White House Communications Director unapologetically called it a necessary action to stop liberal propaganda. August saw yet more consolidation of control and expansion of authoritarian policing powers. The Department of Homeland Security authorized Secret Service officers extensive policing authority in Washington, D.C., a move that human rights advocates likened to paramilitary suppression dissent. Simultaneously, multiple agencies saw top Project 2025 authors installed in leadership, including places like OMB, EPA, CDC, and DOJ. As these agency heads took office, they accelerated purges and mandated rollouts with remarkable speed. In September, the State Department froze foreign aid and recruitment, signaling a shift toward isolationism. Congressional allies presented billions in global assistance, justified under slogans of sovereignty of America and America First. At Treasury, rollback of Inflation Reduction Act provisions slashed IRS capacity to investigate wealthy corporations, curtailing oversight in ways Project 2025 suggested, but even exceeded. One tax enforcement staffer confided, "Our instructions were clear. Dial back audits on big business." October brought environmental and education policy into sharp focus. The Department of the Interior approved the contentious Ambler Road project, a 211-mile mining access road through pristine Alaska, signaling clear priorities for energy extraction at the expense of conservation. Education Secretary moved slowly to rescind key protections for students with disabilities, dismantling federal enforcement of special education laws, and retreating authority toward local control, now bound by Project 2025's conservative schooling mandates. Simultaneously, OMB cemented permanent vetting protocols for civil servants to ensure unwavering loyalty to presidential priorities. By year's end, Data from multiple monitoring groups confirmed the relentless pace. Almost half of Project 2025's policy items were operational. Agency rollouts reached critical mass with sweeping changes across the Justice Department, environmental agencies, public health systems, labor relations, education, and immigration enforcement. And the Department of Justice, career prosecutors defending voting rights and investigating corruption were sidelined or removed. The DOJ now actively advances voter suppression laws favored by the administration and applies federal force against journalists, activists, and political opponents, reversing decades of established legal precedents. Environmental protections at EPA were slashed. Toxic chemical regulations were repealed, staff reduced by thousands, and fossil fuel projects fast-tracked. The federal scientific basis for environmental health regulation has been eviscerated, leaving ecosystems and vulnerable populations at risk. Public health agencies, including the CDC and NIH, lost funding for vaccines, family planning, and community health research. Title X clinics lost federal support, while new policies allow healthcare providers to refuse care linked to abortion or transgender health on conscience grounds. The Department of Education enforces new federal mandates requiring states to ban instruction on systemic racism, climate change, and LGBTQ+ issues to qualify for grants. Teacher dismissals for quote-unquote ideological noncompliance have doubled, and charter schools aligned with Project 2025's values received increased funding and political protection. The Department of Homeland Security dramatically reorganized and empowered, expanded detention capacity, and deployed National Guard and state militias to enforce immigration laws nationwide, including urban centers previously off-limits. Surveillance of nonprofit groups and independent media increased exponentially under broad security pretexts. Labor protections collapsed as OSHA inspections dropped, union rights were undermined, and overtime pay guarantees repealed. Millions of workers faced diminished workplace safety and fewer legal protections. Federal safety nets were destabilized as agricultural food programs like SNAP were cut and redirected to faith-based organizations. Medicaid and Social Security face ongoing rollbacks, with new work requirements and privatization schemes implemented unevenly across states. The FCC facilitated media consolidation and deregulation, restricted content moderation, and defunded public broadcasters, curtailing free and independent journalism while enabling misinformation. Emergency management policies politicized disaster relief funding, delaying or denying aid to states opposing federal immigration priorities, exacerbating natural disaster impacts in vulnerable communities. In just under a year, this radical program has rewritten much of the American government's functions, concentrating power in the White House, eliminating institutional independence, and undermining civil rights and public welfare. As of late 2025, the administration continues its relentless push to finish what Project 2025 laid out, with many more directives lined up for 2026. The transformation isn't theoretical, it's tangible, comprehensive, and deeply disruptive to the democratic fabric and social contract. This is America reimagined by Project 2025. Progress by progress, department by department, regulatory rollback by regulatory rollback. A nation transformed into a government controlled by loyalty, fear, and relentless ideology. So what can we do? It's simple. We can resist, but the best way to do that is by voting. Vote in November of 2026 for a House and a Senate that can put a brake on this. But more important, in 2028, vote for a Democratic president and a Democratic House and Senate. This is the only way we can undo the damage done by Project 2025. That's our solution. That's our challenge. This has been America's Fractured Politics, and I'm Mark Mansour, your host. Until next time, thanks for listening.